Welcome to the introductory lecture for Module 6b. Here we're going to be looking at what the evidence means. Now, over the period of the module so far, we've been looking at how you identify an important topic. We've looked at how you identify the evidence to address that topic, having identified the specific issues. We have looked at the role of the systematic review. We've looked at the role of the quantitative study that gets assessed for quality, and we looked at the role of the qualitative study in helping us to see the importance of the opinions and views of stakeholders. And in Unit 6a, we've also looked at what the evidence tells us. Now, in this session, we're going to be looking at the different contributions of the evidence in terms of how they contribute with regard to their respective strengths and weaknesses. We're going to talk about some important considerations when we are seeking to implement evidence-based policies. The focus of this particular session is on producing an evidence brief, and you'll be introduced to the ideas of a product that you can drill down into. So it starts with a one-page overview, it has a more detailed three-page summary, and then it expands to 25 pages of more detail of the evidence. And that's increasingly being used by policymakers. And we're then going to look at what do well-formulated recommendations look like. And what we want you to think about during this particular session is the way that global and local evidence meshes together. Obviously, systematic reviews are primarily global. They may demonstrate that something works on average, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the effect that you can expect in a local context is going to be equal to that that's achieved on average. And this is where you bring to bear your specific knowledge, your specific know-how, your observations on the situation, the context in which you're operating. And we're going to see how some of the features of local evidence contribute to improving the signal, in other words, improving our confidence that the evidence is going to be appropriate for our particular setting, and others, such as the low quality of the data, will generate noise, so it detracts from our confidence in the evidence. In looking at the evidence policy brief, we're going to consider what decision makers need, how they respond to evidence, and then we're going to conclude this session by formulating meaningful recommendations for policy as captured in an evidence brief. And some of the things that we're going to consider are the language used in a brief. We're going to consider the importance of making it very clear who has a responsibility for taking implications forward, the importance of context. We're going to discuss the debate that there is about whether independent evidence assessments should in fact contain recommendations, or whether that's a role for the policy makers in response to the brief, what we might call upstream and downstream approaches to producing recommendations. So that's an overview of the module, and I encourage you to view the mini lecture that will accompany this particular video so that you can grasp some of the issues that we're going to cover in this particular session. So thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoy this particular session.